Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're having a great spring so far. Today I'm going to be showing you how I set up my bullet journal for June with a very seasonally appropriate theme of strawberries. You can see here that I've already sketched out a little illustration on my cover page here, but I'll explain to you what I'm doing as I do it. So to start off, I have a little cluster of leaves, and this is something that's pretty important for strawberries because if you look up pictures online, you'll notice that all of their leaves always grow in clusters of 3. So I just made sure that all my leaves are in this sort of setup, and then coming from each cluster, I'll draw different flowers and berries coming off on these vines. The flowers are pretty simple to draw. They're just 5 round petals around the center. And I'm sure you guys all know what a strawberry looks like. It's sort of just like a rounded teardrop shape, and then I just made sure to have a few little leaves at the top of each of those berries as well. And most importantly, you have to draw those little dots as the seeds so that it looks like a strawberry. Now you can see I'm adding some detailing to the leaves that I roughly shaped earlier. I actually made a mistake in the beginning and just rounded off the edges of these leaves, but it's pretty important that they have to be like these jagged serrated edges instead. So I'm going to go back later and fix that, but just keep that in mind for all the future leaves. As you can see I'm doing here, I'm just making sure to create those serrated leaves. And then for each of these leaves, I'm also creating sort of like a vein pattern because all of the photos that I looked up of strawberries have this sort of pattern, and I think that it doesn't really look like a strawberry leaf if you leave that out. So it does take a little more time to draw in that detail, but I think that it really makes it look more realistic to have that there. So if you've never seen a strawberry plant, the way it grows is that it actually has like one mother plant, and then eventually over time it sends out these runners and creates new plants by sending off these shoots, and then a new cluster will form at the end of that shoot. So I'm sort of just making sure to keep that in mind as I draw my illustration. I started off with that one main cluster, and then I'm drawing these vines to create new clusters just as it would be in real life. And I'm also making sure that each flower and strawberry comes at the end of one of these vines as well. If you don't really understand what I'm saying, then you can look up photos online and maybe that'll be a little more clear, or even better, you can use this as an excuse to go strawberry picking in real life and see the plants up close and personal for yourself. And as a bonus, you'll get to eat some sun-ripened, delicious, juicy strawberries. If you've never been, you just really have to go because you just can't get strawberries like that in the store, and the season is so short each year. And that's why I also really wanted to have this as the theme for my bullet journal this month, just to celebrate this very short-lived season. Now you can see here that I'm trying to fix up that mistake that I mentioned earlier, and I'm just using my white gel pen almost as a whiteout to cover up the mistakes that I made. It doesn't have to be perfect because I am going to be coloring over this later. If you do want some tips on how to fix mistakes in your bullet journal, my last video I shared 3 different ways that I fix different mistakes, so you can check that out if you're interested. Now you can see here that I'm starting another cluster of strawberries and leaves in the bottom right corner. I like to do this a lot in my layouts and create sort of this asymmetrical balance where I have a really large cluster in one corner and then I go to the opposite corner and I want to balance it on the page, but I don't want to take the focus away from that main focal point I already spent a lot of time on. So I usually just recreate the same thing on a smaller scale just so that it carries the theme across and the page ends up looking very balanced, but it doesn't compete with the other illustration for your attention. Just finishing off these last few berries and flowers here, and you may notice that I made sure that I created berries of all different sizes because I also want to color them in later in different stages of ripeness just so that it looks more realistic. Just finishing off this cover page with the June lettering, and this month I wanted to contrast with the organic shapes of the strawberries and vines and choose this very whimsical and geometric block lettering for the title. I turned this cover page into a printable, which you guys can grab if you're signed up to my newsletter. You'll automatically get a link to download this. And if you're not signed up already, then I'll leave a link in the description box down below for you to sign up and get that printable this month. Now moving on to coloring in this illustration to really bring it to life. And I'm not doing any fancy coloring right now, I'm just using my Crayola Super Tip markers, and I just picked a very basic green and a basic red, and I also pulled in a pink later on just to do just the teeniest amount of blending, but that's basically it. I'm not doing any fancy shading, and I think the illustration really speaks for itself, and you just need to pull in some basic colors just to fill it in a tiny bit. I left my printable blank, by the way, so it's just the outline, so you can go ahead and color it in any way you want and go crazy with the blending if that's what you want, but you can also keep it simple like I'm showing you here, and it still turns out great. To finish off this page, I just used one of my brush tip pens to create this freeform frame, and I actually did 2 different offset borders, and I really like how this just contains the illustration and brings it all together. I'm just going to fill in this mini calendar for the month, and here are some close-up shots of the page. So now moving on to the larger calendar page, I'm starting off with those blocky geometric letters for the June title. And of course I'm starting off with another strawberry cluster, starting off with a trio of leaves, and then drawing a runner to another cluster, and then a bunch of offshoots of strawberries and flowers all throughout those. Going on to the other side to balance that side of the title and creating a little cluster as well. This is going to be partially hidden from the calendar box, so I'm just making sure to leave space for that. Bringing in my red marker here to shade in a bar across the top, and then I'm just going to fill in this calendar using that red marker to create some little circles for the dates, and then I'm going to draw some grid marks. Nothing too crazy here. And then I also have 2 boxes on the side. One is going to be for my tasks for the month, and the other one is going to be for my tasks for the next month. I'm going to go in and color all of these illustrations the same exact way I did in the cover page. As I mentioned earlier, I do want to color in these berries at different stages of ripeness just to make it a little more realistic. And if you want, you can even draw a few extra berries in and just leave them as sort of like a yellow-white berry, just to be a completely unripe one. I just didn't have the right color for that, so I decided to make it sort of a mixture of pink and red. But I actually did go strawberry picking in real life after I drew all of this in and colored in my berries, and I realized that the way I colored them in wasn't exactly the way they ripen. They actually ripen from the top and then the tip stays white, and I actually colored them in the other way. I mean, it really doesn't make a huge difference. I don't think anybody else would know, but this just goes to show you that sometimes it's best to just go out into the world in real life and just find out how things really are. So normally I would have some extra fun pages in my monthly setup, such as habit trackers, mood trackers, anything like that. But I don't know about you, but this time of year is really busy with the weather warming up, going outside more, going on vacation, and summer's coming up. So I realistically didn't think I would have time to keep up with something like that. You know, these are spreads that you normally want to go back to every day, and I just didn't know if I wanted to create a page that I didn't think I was going to have time to use. So this month I just created some very simple open-ended pages that don't take a lot of time to set up, so that if I don't use it, I'm not losing a whole bunch of time anyway. So that first spread was a brain dump spread where I can just put any sort of thoughts down, and then this spread you see here is going to be a spread for my garden plants because, like I said, the weather is warming up, and this is just something that has been on my mind a lot recently, so I just wanted to create a spread for that. But obviously you can recreate this very simple basic spread for anything you need it for. It can be your summer plans, travel plans, anything at all. It's very simple and open-ended. I just drew that color block on the left side and then a border. It's just a nice way to bring some color onto a page that can otherwise just be very simple. So that wraps up my plan with me for this month. I'm gonna have a new video out next week that I'm going to show you the weekly spreads, but I just wanted to get this out early so that you can get your printable and get started on these monthly spreads. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and sign up for my newsletter if you want that free printable. And I hope this inspired you to draw something nice in your bullet journal or to go outside and pick some strawberries. Thanks for watching, you guys, and I'll see you again next time.